is dedicated to helping Christian men become the men that God meant for them to be. So if you're looking for helpful content and conversations that can help you to grow and become the man that God made you to be, then you're in the right place. But before we get started, please do me a huge favor and be sure to subscribe, click the like button, and then leave us a 5-star review. Doing that helps us to reach more men who are looking for content just like this. Also, if you'd like to learn more about our mission and how to get involved or how to join the Fight Club, then head on over to getinthefight.club. That's getinthefight.club and learn more today. But without further ado, it's time to get in the fight. So let's go. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Get in the Fight podcast. I'm your host, Nate Whitson, and this is a show for Christian men. It's a place for those of us who are just like pushing against status quo. It's for those of us who want to win big in God's eyes. We're pushing against some of the monsters of apathy, just letting that creep into our life, and we just become kind of blah, kind of okay with average, kind of just showing up, and we're fighting against that. We're trying to be the men that God meant for us to be. That's our mission. That's our statement. We want to live bigger lives. We want to live better lives. And so we're having conversations that I hope you're finding meaningful towards that end. On the side of my wall here to my left, I have a sign that says, "Be humble and just point people to Jesus." This isn't about building a brand or trying to grow some big name or anything like that. This is about me in my own journey of being a man and being the best husband and follower of Jesus that I can be. It's helping you, hopefully, to do those same things. And so, I'm excited that there are men that want more of this. And if that's you, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Do me a favor, just click on the URL, send it to a friend. Maybe there's somebody at your church or in your community or in your life somewhere, anywhere in the world. And if you feel like this conversation is worthwhile, or you listen to previous podcasts and you think that's the case, then please share it. It's really the only way that we can get the word out here and help more people find this is when you share it, comment on it, like it, and let the algorithm know that you're here. So appreciate you doing all of that. Today, I'm really excited about today's conversation. We're talking about something that we call the 8 habits of Get in the Fight. And just to give attribution and credit where credit's due, I totally stole this. I was listening to Craig Rochelle's leadership podcast and saw this, and I really wish I could tell you which one. It's there. If you type in, maybe, I don't know if it's considered the 8 habits there, but habits, Craig Rochelle, Google it, find it. His stuff is incredible. I love his leadership podcast, in the ministry that they do there. I think is top notch. So again, credit where it's due here. I took those and ran with those as I was kind of building out a platform for this ministry called Get in the Fight. And so here's how we use it here in our ministry. There's a year's worth of what I feel like are very helpful kind of big topics that we cover to help men become the men that God meant for them to be. And the way we break that down is there are 4 core principles. The first principle is that God would help us to be men of honor. The second core principle is that God would help us to be men of discipline. The third is that God would help us to be men of strength. And the fourth is that God would help us be men of joy. So every quarter, we kind of cover one of those 4 principles. In between that, as we meet as a community online and as we chat week to week together, we break down some of these 8 core habits. So there's the 4 principles and then these 8 habits that we're going to cover today. As we go through these, what we're trying to do is become more like Jesus. And for me, when I was going through this process of change, as God was really I think propelling me into this idea and this ministry, it was really just this personal journey of figuring out, I want to run my race well. I want to finish well, whatever time frame God gives me, another 2 years, 2 months, 25 years, whatever it ends up being. I want to be the man that God meant for me to be. And I started to really process and think through and look for ideas on what does that look like practically? What does it look like for me to really become more like him? In what I have come up with, at least so far, are these 4 principles and these 8 habits. And for me, what they've done is they really kind of just keep me in line. They really kind of propel me and push me to be more of the man that God meant for me to be. And I hope that that's what you'll find in that regard for you as well. So again, quick little just plug. Joining the Fight Club is free for Christian men. The way that you do that is you would go to my website, getinthefight.club, and you'll see all kinds of buttons that say join. Click a join button. It takes you to an application. You fill out this 2 or 3 minute, very quick application. It comes to me. I review that, and then I set up a schedule with you to meet, face to face via Zoom and just chat, learn your story. It's a one-on-one process to really figure out if we're a good fit for you, if you're a good fit for our community, and then give you access to the app and all of that. But it's private in that way. It's just for Christian men and those who are really ready to fight, those who are really ready to get in the fight and win. So if that's you, if you're going, gosh, I'm interested, I'd like to learn more, just go to the website, getinthefight.club, learn more, check it out, see how it works. Write me. If you got questions, let me know, or join, and then we'll go from there. So anyways, we're trying to just create a place where you can win on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis and not have to try to fight this game on your own, right? There's a community of men who are doing this just like you. So join us if that's you. All right. So before we jump into what those 8 habits are, the first thing that really comes to mind for me is like, what is a habit? What is a habit? A habit, I wrote down, is a usual way of behaving. Again, I wrote this down because I looked it up. This is what some of the definitions were. A usual way of behaving, something that a person does often in a regular and repeated way, or a settled or a regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. So habits are the things that you repeatedly do. In fact, you've probably heard it said, like, who you are is really just a reflection of the things that you repeatedly do. And where we're going today, then I think is obvious, is that if we learn to embrace habits and principles like these that we'll talk about here, they become ingrained into who we are. And when we change our habits, we change our life. If you have habits that are positive today, that's a really helpful thing for you to live a bigger, better life. But many of us also have habits, but they're not very good. They're not very helpful, right? Maybe like how you respond when somebody, cuts you off in traffic. What is the habit? The regular, repeated response of that. What is your habit when you get tired? What is the habit, the regular, repeated behavior that you have when things don't go your way? What is the habit that you're into when the alarm goes off? What is the habit, the regular, repeated, hard thing to give up sometimes process that you go through when you're down or depressed, right? All of these things you don't even think about as habits. You're just going like, that's just the way that I am. In reality, you've processed and trained yourself over time to respond certain ways. And what's so great about living with Jesus is that you are never stuck in this I could never change mode. The Holy Spirit works in our lives to bring something new. This is what's so great. You didn't become a Christian and get saved by God because you were good, and he doesn't save you so that you could become gooder. I know that's bad English, but I mean it in that way there. You're not trying to become gooder or better or a better version of the old bad guy. He came that you could be made new. And a lot of this is us, even though some of us have been in the faith a long time, this is becoming new continually. This is sanctification being laid out. It's you and I trying to stop this cycle of apathetic living, being okay with just showing up and living average, okay lives, rather than saying, you know what, this life is short. Let's go get it. Let's run our race with everything that we've got. This is a call for men to stand up and create a life that is pleasing to God, that is going to pay off in eternity in big ways. Don't you want that, right? If there's something in you that says, I'm ready for more, then again, Get in the Fight is a great spot for you to start. And these 8 habits can help you to create positive, new ways of repeated behavior. You can become a better man and live a bigger, better life if you will embrace these 8 habits. And again, also the 4 core principles of getting the fight. So we invite you to that. But let's just jump into these real quick. We're just going to kind of fly through these. If you want to write these down, that obviously can be helpful. Or again, you can apply, join the Fight Club, and find all those in our community and get all these resources, right at your fingertips. But number one is this. We call it habit number one, no snooze. No snooze. It says this: I'm the kind of man who wakes up when I'm supposed to so I can be prepared to fight and win the day. I'm the kind of man who wakes up when I'm supposed to. When I first started this journey for myself a few years ago, when God's kind of awakening this in me, I was very typical. I'm thinking it's typical that I would sleep as late as I possibly could, take a shower, put on my shoes, get to work, right? Maybe you relate with that. Sleep as late as you can, push that snooze button as often as possible, groggily wake up and get to work, right? As God started to work in me and is working to change me and helping me slowly but surely to become more of the man that he meant me to be, part of that was learning that great men that I've watched over the years always get up early. I don't know if there's a single man that I have the highest reverence for or respect for who doesn't wake up way earlier than most. And so I always say this, but success leaves clues. And, when I'm starting to awaken in my own life to this idea of I need to fight for more, I started by just waking up a few minutes early. And that small little discipline, that small little habit of just put your feet on the floor and get up, even if it was 10 or 15 minutes earlier, started to make a huge impact in my life. I felt like I was winning by doing something that was a little challenging for me. I didn't have to get up earlier, but I was doing it because I wanted all of a sudden to get up a little bit earlier and get into the Word. That small little process of not hitting snooze really helped me to start preparing for the day better. I really felt a big difference in how the rest of the day went because I got up and actually spent some quiet time before everybody else was awake and got into the Word. And it was very, very good. And so I slowly but surely started pushing that boundary and pushing it back and back into the morning. And eventually now, I get up at 4:30 in the morning. And yeah, some days are hard. And I just have to say, put your feet on the floor. No snooze. Get up when the alarm goes off. Act like a big boy. You'll be fine. And then I am, right? I turn on the coffee. I sit in my chair. I grab my Bible. 15, 20 minutes later, I'm ready to go. So this has been life-changing for me, and I think it could be for you too. My challenge to you here is wake up earlier than you quote-unquote have to and start to change your life with one simple change of habit. One simple, easy, repeatable thing, right? Win first thing in the morning and see how it doesn't help you be more prepared to fight and win the day with the spiritual battles that you're about to face. Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the show so far, and if you are, please do me a big favor and simply get engaged in a simple way. For you, that might be clicking the like button or maybe subscribing to the show. For others, it may be commenting on a show that really stands out to them, or maybe it's just copying the URL and texting it to a friend, or pasting that into your social media, or sharing it via text, whatever it is. All of those things make a huge difference for us, and it helps us to reach more Christian men who are trying to live bigger and better lives. So, number one, thank you for being a listener, and thank you for being a part of this community and part of this show. We appreciate it more than you know, and we appreciate you getting engaged and helping us out. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. All right, so habit number 2 is pre-decide. Pre-decide. Here's what we say. I'm the kind of man who plans ahead for what matters most, and my real priorities dictate my schedule and day. I'm the kind of man who plans ahead for what matters most. So the first thing you have to do here is pre-decide what matters most. Now, when you look at a typical day for you, if you're like most of us, you have a lot of things on the schedule and a lot of things that seem like they're pressing for most important, right? You've got to go to work. You've got to read your Bible. You've got to exercise. You've got to, take on all kinds of things, maybe for the kids in particular. If you've got kids at home, you've got studies or whatever it is, right? You have to decide beforehand, before the day starts, what matters most. And here's the thing I want to say to you in here. Everything can't be most important. When you look and say like, no, they're all equally important. If you say that, then then nothing is important. You have to prioritize and pre-decide what those things are and then give them preference in your day. So for example, as a godly man, a person who's trying to be more like Jesus, what do you think the biggest priority of your day ought to be? That's right. I'm sure you're thinking, read your Bible, say your prayers, communicate with God, get your mind and heart right first thing. That ought to be the priority, right? When we look at, stats in the church, we know for sure that this is not a lived out priority though. Most men are really failing in this area. And there's really no excuse. If you turned habit number 1 on and you started to not hit snooze, and in fact, you started to push the boundaries slowly but surely, and you just pushed yourself to get up slightly earlier than you quote unquote have to, it's part of that pre-decision, that pre-deciding that this matters most. And so I'm going to get up earlier than I have to, and I'm going to make the most important thing the first thing that I do. And I'm telling you, that is life-changing. When you wake up earlier and you make the most important thing most important in your schedule, things will begin to change. God will give you momentum and energy and focus and drive, and you're going to feel great. As a man, you're going to feel like you're winning right off the bat, and that feels way better than pushing snooze twice, scrambling to get out the door, feeling like junk, and knowing that you just keep failing at what you say matters most. Again, what I would do is say, okay, if that's priority 1, what's priority 2? One of those things needs to be exercise of some kind. Maybe it's just walking, getting to the gym, doing whatever you need to, but where would that fit in? Again, for me, it ended up having to be earlier in the day because later in the day, things get crazy. Kids got sports and school and different things, and I'm coming home from work and I'm tired and blah, blah, blah. So for me, exercise was really important because it affects every other area of my life, and it affects every other area of yours too. But you've got to decide what matters most and then put it in your calendar. That's the key. Be the kind of man who plans ahead and executes on the things that you say matter most. Those things ought to dictate your schedule, and everything else should fill in around it. Okay, habit number 3, do the hard right thing. Here's what this says. I'm the kind of man who does the hard right thing over the easy wrong thing every time. I'm telling you, this is a challenge. In fact, that's the same phrase that we use. This is the only one that crosses over with one of our 4 principles. In the principle of I am a man of discipline, this is what we say. I'm the kind of man who does the hard right thing over the easy wrong thing every time. I also threw it into the 8 habits because it's just so critical. Being the kind of man who does the easy wrong thing every time is where most of us are at. It's like when you have a conflict in a relationship in your life, the easy wrong thing is to ignore it. The easy thing is to blame other people. The easy thing is to not deal with your emotions, to not deal with the situation, to avoid difficult stuff, right? The easy thing is to sleep in. But to do the hard right thing is life-changing. This is a life-changing habit, just like the first 2. Become the kind of man who says, here's my priorities, and I will do those things first. I'm going to do hard right things. And here's the thing that you should know that's very obvious. Life is hard. It is really hard to live against the grain. It is really hard to not live like every other pagan neighbor of yours, right? It's really hard to live the Christian life because you're going to say no to things that everybody else says is no big deal. It's going to be hard to live different. It's going to be difficult to live like Jesus. He said you have to take up a cross every day. That is beyond hard, right? So learning the habit of taking on hard right things now allows you to take on big tasks that God may have for you in the future as well. This one cannot be overstated about how important this is. And I'm telling you, what's so great is as you start to memorize and think through these things regularly, this phrase comes back to me So often when I would just rather take the easy route out, I hear in my head, I'm a man of discipline. I do the hard right thing over the easy wrong thing every time. Now, again, these are all ideals. You'll never perfectly live out all 8 of these habits or all 4 of those principles, but they're there as guardrails. They're there as a guide to point us in the direction of holiness. And that is really the aim of the Christian life, holiness. Will you ever attain that this side of heaven? No. But you're going to be on that journey. And this is going to help you to really become more of the man that God meant for you to be. As imperfect as it is, you'll be more of that the more you embrace these habits and principles. So do the hard right things. Number 4, we said, was you first leadership. Here's how we say that. I'm the kind of leader who loves people well, so I think you before me. Well, what is leadership about? Leadership isn't about the title that you possess. It isn't about power. It isn't about being in charge, right? It's about loving and serving people well. Think about what Jesus said. Even though he was God, he set aside his divinity and took up the role of a servant. I didn't come to be served, he said, but to serve and to give my life as a ransom for you. How crazy is that? That is the epitome of great you first leadership. I mean, so often as a man, our lives really revolve around us. And I know I feel challenged about this, even when it comes to like my favorite people's stuff. And what I mean by that is, like, I have 4 daughters, and I don't necessarily always want to do 4-daughter things. Like, I don't love going to girls' basketball. I'm really sorry if that offends you. I just don't like it. But I go when my girls are involved in basketball because I love them. It's not about me. It's about them, right? I don't always want to go do tea parties or some of these things, but if that's what they're into, then that's what I'm into, right? You first leadership isn't about title or who's in charge, right? You don't get to go like, I'm the dad and that's why. Some of you grew up like that, with people like that. Or if you're the boss or you run a division or whatever it is at work, like, it's not like because you have a title, you get to boss people around. No, it's the other way. Jesus had the title. He is Son of God. And he put that title aside to say, let me wash your feet. That is you first leadership. And that probably just speaks for itself, but I want you to think through that habit. Is it a habit of yours to think you before me? Probably not. Like, the humanity of us, the selfishness in us really fights against that idea. But this is such a Jesus first kind of idea. You first leadership will help you to become more of the man that God meant for you to be, because it's about laying your life down because you're stronger, because you're in a position of authority. That's why you actually serve the most. That's why you actually give the way that you give. And so where do you need to focus more on you first? Is it in your marriage? Are you putting your wife first? Are you loving her like Jesus loves the church, where you sacrificially die to yourself and put her before you? Do you love your kids that way? Do you love your coworkers that way? On and on. Learn to think you first. That's the mark of great leadership. Number 5, we said, is touch the line. And here's what we say there. I'm the kind of man who doesn't stop when I'm tired. I stop when I'm done. I don't cut corners, and I won't cheat on what matters most. You know, like, being the kind of man who finishes well is so key. Being the kind of man who can be counted on to get the job done is so important today. You know, this touch the line makes me think of back in the day, years ago, when I was an athlete, or you can picture sports, you know, of any kind now, and you watch them doing sprints down the field, right? Playing football, and the coach is standing there at the goal line, and you're to run through the line, touch the line or whatever, and then go back down the field. And he's like, don't cheat, don't cut it, we're going to start this thing over, right? And it's like, touch the line, get to the finish line. Don't be 2 inches short of the line, right? Don't be a foot short of the line. Touch the line. Go all the way. Do the things that you know you're supposed to do. It just makes me think in my own life, touch the line for me is just saying, I'm not going to cheat on the things that matter most. I'm going to finish the things that I started, meaning I'm going to finish my marriage the way that I started it, with a promise to her family and to her that I would love and cherish and honor her. I'm going to finish that race. I'm going to touch the line there. And I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. As a father, when those kids didn't ask to be born, they didn't ask for this, right? I want to touch the line in their life, and I want to pursue being the man that they need me to be in their life, not just while they're in my home, but for the rest of their life. And as long as I live, that I will be the man that doesn't cut corners or cheat them out of what they deserved to have as their dad. As a follower of Jesus, what does that look like to be the kind of man who doesn't stop when he's done, but doesn't stop when he's tired, but stops when he's done? What does that look like to keep fighting? What does that look like to touch the line as a follower of Jesus? Those are the thoughts in my head here. How do we become that kind of man? This is the pursuit. Be that kind of man who doesn't stop when he's tired. He stops when he's done. Where are you cutting corners? Where are you cheating? Where are you stopping short? And how do you get back going? Right? That's where we're at with habit number 5. Number 6 is go one more. Habit number 6 is go one more. Here's what we say. I'm the kind of man who exceeds expectations and goes further than is necessary. I go one more because leaders like me do better than just what's required. Imagine if every employer out there felt like, man, I wish we had more Christians working here, because every Christian man I know does more than is required. He's there earlier. He stays later when necessary. He gives his best effort. He exceeds expectations. I expect people to be lazy and complaining and all of that. He never does that kind of stuff, right? He never stops at just the bare minimum. He's always asking what else he can do. He does it with a great attitude, right? That is what it means to go one more. Exceed expectations. Do more than is quote unquote necessary or required. How about you? When you think of that, when you hear that, does that describe you? Do you do more and exceed expectations, or do you stand out for the opposite? Are you the kind of guy that's more of the complainer, the guy that just only does what he has to, but no more, right? And you justify it in your head because you just say, well, the boss is like this, or other people are like this, or, they don't deserve it, or whatever you think, right? When it comes to going one more, what kind of man are you, right? This is a challenge to me. Am I that kind of guy? Well, not always. That's the truth. And so when I go through these 8 habits, man, I'm challenged by it. Again, none of us probably perfectly lives these things out. Well, of course, there's no probably there. None of us, we'll say it more definitively, none of us perfectly lives this out. But that doesn't give us an excuse to not fight. That doesn't give us an excuse for just going, well, this is a really tough one. Yeah, well, we do tough things here, right? We're going to take on hard tasks, and this is one of them. Exceed expectations. Do more than is required of you, because that is the way of Christ, and that is the way of greatness in God's eyes. That's what we're shooting for here. Learning to make that a habit, right? Well, what's the best way to make that a habit? Do it everywhere you can. Do a little bit more. Go one more. Go a little bit extra. What else can you do? Ask that question. What else could I do? What else could I do? Is there any more I could do? Right? What a great way to take on fatherhood and parenting and following Jesus and any other role that you're in. Wherever you're at, try to go just one more. 2 more here. Number 7, stay inspired. Here's what we say. I'm the kind of man who actively and intentionally stays encouraged and inspired by following men who are winning in areas that I want to be great in. I'll read it one more time. I'm the kind of man who actively and intentionally stays encouraged and inspired by following men who are winning in areas I want to be great in. One of the things that we all know is true is that you become like the people you are around the most. You become like them, right? You end up voting like them. You use common phrases like them, right? Where you can finish each other's sentences. You're just so familiar and so influenced by them that you think a lot like them. You start to see the world like they see the world. You start to do things the way that they do things. It's just the way influence works. You are a lot more like the people that you are around the most. And my question to men is often this: how actively and intentionally are you surrounding yourself with great men? And not just like nice guys, but like men who are in the arena, men who are fighting to live bigger and better lives. Are you surrounding yourself with them? Are you intentionally looking for them? Or are you just kind of going with the flow and just kind of like being swept away like everybody else, right? How do you actively and intentionally stay encouraged and inspired? Well, for me, a lot of it comes from books I listen to or podcasts that I listen to, people that I follow on social media. Like my podcasts and social media are full of Navy SEALs, business leaders, Christian leaders, pastors, men that are doing ministry like I'm doing. And it's amazing. Like, gosh, like there's times I feel like, man, I think I'm doing okay. And I'm watching these other guys out there and they're just killing it. And it raises the bar for me. And I love that. I need that. I need to stay continually encouraged, continually inspired, because you raise up to the level of people around you. And again, even if it's not people in your immediate life, I guess that's why I mentioned those people that you don't even know. There are ways of staying actively and intentionally inspired by other people. A podcast, hopefully like this, if that does that for you, is a great way to follow me and listen to conversations like this. Be around people who elevate your life, push you to be more like Jesus. How you focus and who you spend time with really determines so much of the future and so much of the ripple effect of your life and how it impacts other people. So stay inspired. Make it a habit that when you have free time or you have the opportunity to build relationships with people in your life, that you look for people who are winning. Do you want to be a great father? Find great fathers. Do you want to be a better husband? Find great husbands and get around those guys. Spend time with those guys. Ask those guys for your time or for their time. Ask them for their advice. Ask them what they read, what they listen to, right? You want to be a great mechanic? Go find a great mechanic and hang out with a great mechanic. There are men who are winning in areas that you need to win at. Are you struggling with a certain kind of sin? Find men who have also struggled and won and finding victory in those things, and you will become more like them. Or keep going on your own. Stay stuck in the patterns that you're in and say, I'm always going to be this way, and make excuses. It's really up to you. But if you will stay actively and intentionally looking for people like this, you will benefit and make that a habit in your life. I'm going to find people and I'm going to stay connected. I'm going to stay plugged in. I'm going to stay inspired. All right, last one here is habit number 8. We call this one show back up. Habit 8 is show back up. This says this: I'm the kind of man who says, when I commit, I don't quit. I finish what I start and keep showing back up when I fall down. 2 things here. Number 1, are you actually committed to being the man that God meant for you to be? Ask yourself and answer that one genuinely. Are you actually committed or not? Because what I mean by that is, like, a lot of guys are interested, but they're not committed, right? Like, they're interested in Jesus. They're interested in not going to hell, but they're not really committed to being the men that God had in mind for them. I always say this to guys. Did you know that you are here for a purpose? Do you know what that purpose is? Do you know that God is imploring you to get in the fight for the kingdom? He needs you. He wants you. You are needed in this thing, right? And so you need to be all in. You need to be fully committed, right? Jesus makes this clear to us. Like, there is, like, the people that were like, well, let me go bury my dad. He's like, let them do it. Let the dead bury the dead. You must follow me. You have to make me more important, Jesus said, than father or mother or brother or sister or any other thing. More important than your money. More important than your own life. You must follow me. Well, that takes a level of commitment that I don't think most of us probably fully grasp. And that's really what the challenge is here. Do you have a habit of showing back up even when you fall or have a bad week or a bad stretch? Or do you just spiral out of control for months and months, years and years in some cases? Or do you say, God, I'm sorry. I'm going to reach out to some accountability brothers. I'm going to let them know what's going on, and I'm going to get back in the fight. Which one is more habitual to you? We want to become the kind of men who say, when I commit, I don't quit. Again, in my marriage or on my kids, at my work, whatever the task is. I want to be the kind of man who finishes well. And when I fall, because I will keep getting back up. The second thing that I said here was not only are you actually committed, but number two, if you are committed, if you think that that's true, then you need to keep going when it gets hard. And guess what? Enthusiasm is common, especially early, but endurance is rare. That was a quote from Angela Duckworth. Enthusiasm is common, endurance is rare. We want to be rare. Be a rare man. Be the kind of man who keeps showing up. Do you fall in a major way? Take it, right? Commit to never doing those things again. Acknowledge your sin and your weakness and keep fighting. Keep getting back up, right? Don't succumb to the devil's messages and lies to you that it's too late, that you're a failure, that why keep trying, all these kind of lies. He's going to lie to you like crazy when you fall. But we want to get in the habit of showing back up. Maybe you're listening to this today and you're like, you know what? I haven't been fully committed and I haven't, had the endurance that I needed to, and I need help. Well, then you know what? Commit back to the Lord again today. Commit to the Lord your plans, and he will help you to succeed. This isn't a pull yourself up by the bootstraps kind of thing. This isn't a willpower kind of thing. The battle that you face is spiritual. It's a change of heart. And it isn't done by just memorizing 8 habits or 4 principles or joining a community. It's done when you fully commit and surrender your heart to God fully, right? You might already be saved, but your heart might be far from him. And today, when you hear this, today's the day where you say, you know what? I need to show back up. I need to get back in the fight. I need to become the man that God meant for me to be. And I'm going to start that today with God's help. That would be a great day. That would be a great response. Okay. So those are the 8 habits. And just to wrap up again, I'm just going to run through them real fast just to remind you here if you're taking notes or you want to have these one more time in your head. The first one was no snooze. Get up, right? Wake up earlier. Number 2 was pre-decide. Everything can't be most important, so what matters most, pre-decide, and then make your calendar and your schedule that day reflect those things. Do the most important things first and foremost. Number 3, do the hard right thing. It kind of speaks for itself, but get in the habit of being the kind of man who says no to the easy wrong and takes on the hard. It will change who you are. Number 4 was you first leadership. Will you be the kind like Jesus to sacrificially give yourself away for those who are under your authority? Hopefully that's the kind of man that you are becoming. Habits that we start to form is like you first, you before me. How can I serve more? Number 5 was touch the line. Learning to be the kind of man that doesn't stop or cut corners, right? Keep going, finish well, do the hard right things there as well. Number 6 was go one more. We're not going to be the kind of men that just do what's required and stop right there. We're going to exceed expectations. Where can you do that practically in your life today? Number 7 was stay inspired, actively and intentionally looking to be around conversations like this, men who are talking like this in your life. Who do you know that is great at what you want to be great at, even if they're not somebody you personally know? Can you find them online? Can you get their books? Whatever it is, right? Stay inspired. And number 8, show back up. Be the kind of man who says, when I commit, I don't quit. So what commitments have you made? Where have you backslidden? And where do you need to show back up today? These are the 8 habits of getting the fight. And again, the invitation's open. If that's you, if you're interested, check us out, getinthefight.club. Click the join button, send me something, and you and I can meet face-to-face like this and say hello. See if it's right for you. Would love to chat with you about that. But get in the fight. Stay focused. This life is short, right? These 8 habits can help you to stay on mission, on point, and become more of the man that God meant for you to be. That's what we're looking for. That's the goal. So let's get it. Hey guys, thanks so much for being here today and listening to the show. Please be sure to head over to the website at getinthefight.club. And before you go, if you haven't already, please subscribe, click the like button, and leave us a positive 5-star review. It makes a huge difference whenever you do. Have a great day. Go get in the fight.